Well, hello and welcome back to Adrian's Digital Basement. This is part 2 in the Atari 800 repair series. I hope it's not going to be a series. Hopefully it'll just be 2 parts. But in part 1, I took a look at the Atari 800 that I've had for quite a number of years that never had a working keyboard. And I discovered that the motherboard is actually totally working fine and that the problem lies with this keyboard. So in this part, I'm going to dig into this keyboard and see if I can get it working. I've done a little bit of research and it looks like there are at least 3 different types of keyboards for this machine, with one type being more unreliable than others. And I think that is this type. So I might not be able to get this keyboard even working in this video, but I'm going to try. So without further ado, let's get right to it. All right, that means it is time to try to service this Mitsumi keyboard. So this is all pretty run-of-the-mill stuff. Oh, it uses little Phillips heads. So this is exactly like every Commodore keyboard I've ever worked on. All those pet keyboards and things like that. You just start by taking out these little screws. All right, so with Commodore keyboards, they put a little piece of tape over these wires here, but there's this sticky foam here. I am sure that there's gonna be a screw under here somewhere. Looks like someone's already been in this keyboard. Well, that's intriguing. So is this a problem that has already happened once before? Let's see if the PCB lifts off now. There it comes. Oh no, it's a membrane under there. No. I just was under the assumption that this was like the Commodores. That's not good, everyone. All right, well, let's see. What is possibly going wrong here? So things are pretty clean in here. I'm not seeing a lot of gunk or anything. Now, each of the little sliders here just has a little nub on it, which basically pushes onto these little contact points on this membrane. So there's a top side and a bottom side of the membrane. And when it pushes on one of these, it's supposed to make contact. There's a strip right here, and I think that connects this top membrane to the PCB underneath, which also has carbon tracks on it. And then that is what routes to the connector here. So obviously, maybe what's happening is simply this is not being pushed down hard enough. Looks like there's like a plastic ridge right here that does that pushing. Perhaps I need to put some little foam or something there to make it push a little harder. Now what I can do is I can connect this to the motherboard, which I'm going to do right now, and that way we can kind of experiment. I'll move the keyboard out of the way here. We should be able to experiment with how hard we have to push on that little strip there, if it's even possible at all. So first off, let's get this computer working again. So I've reconnected this, power this on. Okay, we got the ready screen. Now for the keyboard connector. All right, keyboard is reconnected there. I put a little Deoxit in there just so it was a little easier to reconnect. All right, so let's power this on. Now, obviously, when I push on keys, wait, what, that's actually working? Well, one key worked. Oh, I think I plugged this in upside down. Oops. Well, that's interesting that it even worked at all, though. Like, I didn't have a single key working before. Boy, and even with Deoxit, it's impossible to get off. There we go. Okay, here we go again, try number 2. So plugging it upside down, you're gonna get weird readings, obviously. So that's the space bar. Wait a second, everyone. This is working now? This makes no sense. Could the problem have been oxidization in the connector right here and putting some Deoxit in there did the trick? Yeah, this thing seems to be working now. I'm totally confused by that. I just assumed that something were very wrong with this membrane, but it seems like all the keys are working. Okay, I'm just gonna clean out the dust a little bit more and I'm gonna reassemble the keyboard and we'll give this thing another test. All right, the keyboard PCB is back in. So now I'm gonna reconnect this here and we'll see if this thing has gone back to non-functionality or it stays working. There we go. Look at that. How interesting is that? That when it wasn't together, it was working, And now, not a single key is working. Let me just make sure that it's connected. It is. Oh, the camera battery ran out just there, so when I plugged the keyboard back in when it was reassembled, it didn't work. Actually, one key worked, the equal sign, and I think maybe a couple things on that row, and that's it. So I took it out again, and I just want to retest this thing without the PCB attached to the rest of the keyboard. Let's see if this thing works again. All right, it does. It does work. This is so strange. And it's pretty sensitive too. You don't have to push very hard on these keys for it to actually register a key push. So the question is, if I push down on this with a thumb, does it stop working? No, it's still working. Ah, this is very strange. And I gotta say, I really hate these kinds of keyboard membranes for this exact reason. Just weird, weird problems. Just twisting the board, thinking that maybe there's a problem with like a broken trace or something on it, but it really seems fine. Any kind of bending I do doesn't affect anything. All right, I have an idea. I'm just gonna hold the PCB into the back of the keyboard here. Okay, there we go. I'm just holding it in place. I just wanna see if typing letters actually works. It doesn't. So, is the problem that the little rubber nubs on the back of the keys don't push down enough on the PCB? Could it be that? What the heck is going on? Okay, I'm getting a P. I am pushing on the back of the O key pretty hard, and yet, okay, the P, okay, you know what, it sort of starts to work. It's very strange. Okay, so now O is working. What about if I push over here? Very strange, but if I take that off, obviously we're having no problem at all. But maybe what the problem is that this membrane is worn out, and when I push on it with my finger, I am pushing a lot harder than that little rubber thing on the back of the keyboard, the keys themselves, can actually push onto this. I mean, it's weird because it's not like I'm pushing with much force and I'm getting key presses. So I don't really get that. Now we look at the sliders there. I mean, the rubber is supple and it definitely extends quite a bit beyond where the PCB is. So we should really push down onto it. I'm just holding my finger here to see how much force it pushes with. It's not a lot, actually. It's pretty gentle. I don't know though, it's just, I'm pushing so lightly on these and they're registering without any issue. Okay, and look at that, I pushed the A a bunch of times and now it's fine. That's so strange. Wait, look, they're all working now. I don't understand what's happening here. Now the keys are working with me holding the PCB in place. The numbers, like 1 is not working reliably, but the screws aren't even in right now. If I push it a bunch of times, it starts to work. This is weird. I'm gonna put the screws back in one more time. Otherwise, I guess I have to order a new membrane. I mean, I don't know if that's even something you can get. I'm assuming it is, because I think the Atari community is pretty good. Like, there's a lot of support for it. Not as much as the Commodore, but still a decent amount. All right, I've only put in about half the screws along the top part of the keyboard, where the number keys are and stuff. So I just want to see if it's sort of working right now, or if it goes back to completely not working. Okay, it's back to not working again. This is so weird. I mean, it was literally working a second ago. This is obviously some kind of a physical issue. And we actually got a Q out of it, and that was it. No more key pushes after that. I'm gonna take some of the screws out, see if that changes anything. Funny, when the keyboard was upside down, I was actually getting the number 2 key pushed, and it stopped working now, so now we're back to just not a single key working. And while the screws are out, I can tell that pushing on the keys actually is moving the PCB, so I know there's force coming onto it. Alrighty, no screws are in now. We're getting no key pushes. But if I push on the PCB myself, we're getting key pushes. Let's see if it's anything to do with this wire here. Nope, the wire is not the problem. It really just seems like the way these little sliders push down on the membrane is just somehow not enough force. Or this is not aligned properly? Okay, so what the problem appears to be is somehow there's an alignment problem, because if I push the PCB, there are little dowels that align it into position, but if I push it up, now some of the keys are working. So I'm pushing one right now on the keyboard, and you can see one's appearing on the screen. If I push the keyboard PCB down onto the dowels, it stops working. It's almost like that membrane that's on here is misaligned. I wonder if someone opened this thing up and they applied a new membrane, and the membrane is somehow out of position. You know, looking at this, I really don't think that's the case. I mean, all the screws are in perfect position. The only thing I can think of doing here is cutting away the dowels. There's one there, and there's one there. And obviously the screws will hold it into place, and maybe that will allow me to align this thing in a way that's gonna work. All right, I did it. I cut those two dowels off, so they've been removed. So let's put this back into position here. And let's see if I hold it into place. Okay, FD, some of the keys are working. So what I'm gonna try to do is screw this in, and I'm gonna keep the screws loose because this thing can move around a little bit. And then perhaps I can get it into a working position and then tighten the screws down. All right, well, I have some of the screws tightened and certain keys work, but still very problematic. And I think the problem is that these, the screw holes don't offer enough leeway, so to speak. And unfortunately, this just doesn't seem to work. No matter how I position the PCB and the tiny amount of space it can move, maybe I can get a couple keys working, but it doesn't seem to be enough. And I can't explain what's going on here. I don't really get it. I think I've got it as good as I can, and a bunch of the keys work now, but a bunch don't work. Like T works, but Q does not. A does. Seems like a lot works. Some are kind of intermittent. Like space doesn't work at all. I think the membrane is just shot. My feeling is that probably the one spot where the little rubber thing pushes down onto the little divot is no longer working. And potentially when I push it with my finger, I'm pushing on a larger spot than the little point, the rubber point that are under the sliders. And that is why moving the board around makes it work a little bit, because it's now pushing on a spot that it wasn't pushed on before. Well, I'm gonna put back the rest of the screws and we will just see if anything is improved when they're all back in. Or maybe it'll go back to not working at all. All right, all the screws are back in. Let's flip this around. I'll just rest this on here, I guess. And it's worse. Oh no, well, wait a second. Okay, we have no enter key. This, yeah, okay. It really is not happy. If I push the keys a whole bunch of times, like the S starts working there. Okay, well, you know what? It's coming back to life here. Like the 1 and 2, which I slammed down on, are fine, and enter is fine. I don't have to slam it anymore, and it actually works. Huh, what a strange problem, but that's what you get with keyboards. When they're not mechanical with sliders that actually have little contact pads, these have like carbon paint or whatever on them, and it's just not a very good long-term solution. All right, so keyboard is not working very reliably. I've done some research. It seems like the membrane starts to get oxidized underneath and it doesn't work very well. I hadn't really seen anyone trying to move the PCB around like I tried to do, which sort of restored it, but it seems like I'm gonna have to try to peel off that membrane and maybe clean the contacts, or maybe a little bit of sandpaper, like just the tiniest amount, something like that, to remove that oxidized layer. So first thing I need to do, remove the PCB from the keyboard once again. There appears to be 2 other types of keyboards that are used on the Atari 800, so there's 3 types total, and the other 2 aren't without their issues, but it seems like they are less problematic than this Mitsumi one. This one seems to be well, you know, I don't know. There's not a lot of information that I could find, but it seems like people complain about this one not working. The other ones, like there's a stack pull one, and stack pull keyboards actually have metal contacts inside, so they're relatively easy to keep working. I think the problem with stack pulls is they have these like square sliders, a little shell part, and that can start to crack and break. Anyway, as I am furthest from an expert on Atari stuff, if anyone has familiarity with this Mitsumi membrane keyboard and you know of fixes, I guess put a comment down below. But at this point, I'm just gonna go for it and try to peel this off. So what I don't know is that, does this membrane normally come off freely when the keyboard is new? Like, does this stickiness that's happened on here happen over time? Now the corner here does lift up without any issue, but I'm afraid of peeling it more. So I'm gonna grab the heat gun here, this one right here. It's a crappy one from Harbor Freight, and I'm gonna keep it at a good distance from this. I don't wanna melt anything, and I'm just gonna try to heat this up. So in case there is a little bit of adhesive on there, it should free it up, hopefully. All right, so this is warmed up quite a bit, and I started to lift it, and right away it started to tear, like right there. So I'm gonna grab a little, I don't know, flat bait screwdriver, I guess. And I am just gonna try to carefully peel this away. And it seems like it's getting stuck where the screw holes are. It seems like the construction of this thing is there's a plastic mylar layer on the top, and then this white stuff, it's sort of like a rubbery, sticky material, and that's what's getting stuck. So what's tearing is not the plastic mylar on the top, which actually has the traces, it's that middle layer, which obviously is there as a buffer to lift the mylar off the PCB so that when the keyboard is sitting there and you're not pushing on a key, that it is not actually making contact. And this is really fiddly. Yeah, it's like a rubber layer almost. I think the trick is I'm gonna heat it from the underside as I peel it up. That seems to kind of free it up without tearing it. This is set for 115 degrees Celsius. I'm just looking to see where the next screw hole is. There we go. Now as I peel it off, I don't want to peel it right here where it's making contact, because I feel that that'll be a little bit harder to re-adhere. So I'm going to be careful here. I think that's actually all of the screw holes loosened. Oh, except for this one up here probably. Yep, let me do that one. Unfortunately, this one sort of tore. All right, so there is the membrane. So those are the, I don't know, carbon contacts, and they touch the PCB here. Now everything looks really nice here. I don't really see why this thing's not making good contact. In my research, I was reading that people just did a little bit of abrasion on these black spots here that contact this, and that seemed to do the trick. You know, I am skeptical, to be honest. I feel like this entire thing is gonna need to be replaced, but it's worth a try, I guess. All right, I grabbed some 1500 grit sandpaper here. I just cut a tiny little strip. One post I was reading about this said that it was the fact that it gets stuck down and it can't slide around at all. And that's actually why it's not working, because, you know, there has to be a little bit of give in the plastic when you push down on it with the key. Whether that's accurate or not, I don't know. I suppose what I could have done is once I peeled it off, I could have just put it back together and see if that made any difference. As far what I'm doing now, I'm not even, there's no sanding going on. I'm literally just using the edge of this sandpaper just to mark it up so I could see little sort of very faint scratch marks. It looked like at some point in the past there was potentially a group buy of some new membranes, but that seemed like to be 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm not even sure that it actually happened. Like someone was looking to have someone manufacture some new membranes for these keyboards. Okay, that's all those done. I think I'm gonna just give this a little bit of a clean, get the oils off that I left on there. Now, of course, I'm not gonna clean the membrane. I'm just gonna clean the PCB. Just a little tiny bit of 99% IPA. Everything is super clean under here because of course the membrane was sort of stuck to the PCB, so no dust or anything was getting in here. And the space bar is up here at the top. All right, well, I think that's gonna be it. At least it's free now. Well, it's not free to completely move because it's still adhered up here on this contact, but on the rest of it, it can sort of slide around a little bit. So maybe that helps. Let's put it back together. The keyboard's back together and I have all the screws on, but they are only lightly applied. So the PCB can move around ever so slightly. All right, keyboard is connected. It is now the moment of truth. This is a test. No kidding. Does it? It seems to be working. Wow. Okay. I'm gonna tighten all those screws and let's see if this keeps working. Spacebar, enter. Whoa. I had little faith, very little faith that this would actually do anything at all. All right, screws have been tightened. Now it's the moment of truth, part 2. Turn on the computer. Here we go. This is a test of the Atari 800 keyboard. Wow. Oops, I thought I hit enter, but I actually pushed the caps lock key there. So now we're in lowercase. All right, let me just go through and push all the keys. So far, so good. I can't believe this. I can't believe this freaking works. I thought that whole thing was a goner and this computer would need a whole new keyboard. Uh-oh. That is a V key that does not work. So B and C next to it work very well. So far, every other key is okay. What does this Atari key do exactly? I'm not sure. Okay, shift. Oh, it seemed to have inverted the text. Okay, well, it's working. Caps lock, you know, caps lock is not working well either. You know what, that just might be because I don't know how it works. Okay, you hold shift and push it. Okay, so that is working fine. So you push it once, you get lowercase, shift in that, and you get uppercase. Okay, control. Okay, we're getting special characters. I assume that's good. This shift key, that seems to work. Space bar is working. Okay, so the key that's not working is V. And I mean, it works if you push it several times. So I'm gonna loosen the screws. I'm just gonna move the PCB slightly and maybe that'll fix V. Seems to be okay now, to be honest. Oh, escape also is not working so great. If I push it lightly, nope. But the rest of the keys, you don't even have to bottom them out for them to register. And the tab key is fine. Okay, so pretty much everything is fine. I'm just gonna try that repositioning now that the dowels are out. And let's see if that helps those keys. Could be that I didn't like sand enough or whatever. All right, I sort of pushed it up towards the top as I tightened the screws down. Let's see how that works now. That did the trick. Now V is very easy to push. Escape, not so much. Who cares? Escape's not like a key you use very often. I guess I should test every other key again though, because maybe moving it has caused those to stop working. I'm only gonna lightly push every key. I'm not even gonna bottom them out, just to make sure it registers properly. Yeah, I mean, I can't believe it, but this thing freaking works. Wow, okay, I'm not gonna say it works totally until I completely tighten every screw on here back to the way I had it and just make sure that it doesn't degrade by tightening these. Oh yes, this seems to be working. I can't believe that peeling it off and maybe scratching it or one or the other seemed to repair this keyboard. Unfreaking believable. Actually, I think the escape key works fine. I think you just have to push it twice on the Atari before you see the character on the screen. That's what it seems like it's doing, and I don't have to bottom it out for it to register, so even that is fixed. I can't even get it. This is amazing. I think this computer is done. I'm gonna reassemble it now. Alrighty, the machine is nearly back together, and before I put the top cover on, I'm just wondering if maybe I can take a little piece of foam and lay that across the cards here, just to give them a little bit of stabilization. All right, I cut a little piece of the chamois here. How about this? This is not gonna disintegrate over time, because it's like polyester or whatever. And maybe I can just lie this right across these little raised nubs on the cards here, like that, and that will just push down on this metal plate here. So let's see if this thing now fits over here. It seems to go on there and close without any issue, but I don't know as if it's even making contact. What if I put 2 on one side here? Yeah, definitely with 2 there. It's definitely kind of lifting this up slightly. So I guess maybe 1 will be fine. And I'm putting them in these positions here because that's where the tabs are, right there and there. And plus the 2 screws that hold this down are there and there. And if we close that, I don't have the screws on here. Let me just shake the computer. I don't hear any kind of wobbling or anything, so we're gonna call that good. And there we have it, a repaired Atari 800, where the only fault with this machine was simply that keyboard membrane that wasn't working. All the other electronics in this thing were still working perfectly after all this time. Quite a forward-thinking design on this original machine with the 4 joystick ports, the full-size, really nice-feeling keyboard, and of course, the dual cartridge slots that are inside this machine, left and right, although the right never ended up being used for very much. And then behind this cover, of course, we have the 4 expansion slots for user upgradable RAM and ROM, which simply is accessible by taking 2 screws off the top here. And let's not forget the video output on this machine, which of course is S-Video compatible with Chroma and Luma, which is very forward thinking for 1979, along with this serial I/O connector here, which allows you to connect a whole bunch of peripherals, and they actually run at a pretty decent speed. And remember I had mentioned originally that there was a speaker inside here and I didn't remember it doing anything. Well, that's because of course the keyboard wasn't working and it seemed to be used for an audible keyboard click, which probably would have been very helpful on the Atari 400 with that flat microwave oven style keyboard, but really not necessary for a good feeling keyboard like this. Luckily, it's probably as easy as just unplugging that if you don't want to hear that beeping, at least on the 800. While on later Ataris, I'm pretty sure that that actually came out of the audio output from the video jack. And indeed, after reassembly, this machine seems to be working properly. And you know, that keyboard really feels nice. I gotta say, this is probably one of the better feeling keyboards on these old machines from the 70s. The Apple II could be had with an Alps SKCC keyboard like the Apple II and II Plus, and that keyboard feels better than this, but this one is right up there with really good quality keyboards. The funny thing is, the 800 XL that I have has one of the worst feeling keyboards I have ever felt. It feels like you're typing into, I don't know, gel or something. It's absolutely terrible. But this one, on the other hand, really nice. And just like I had theorized with that power supply, if we open the top cover here, it actually shuts off the machine. So there is no danger from you taking cartridges in or out while the computer is powered up. You don't have to worry about that causing an issue. Incidentally, if you boot up without the basic language cartridge in, you get this memo pad, which I assume this just lets you type things on your computer for fun. I had lots of comments on my first video telling me that indeed, Atari released updated basic language cartridges for this machine, and there were even third-party ones available as well. And unlike machines like the Commodore where that's fixed on the motherboard, if you want to expand your basic, well, you know, it takes up a little bit more RAM. But on this machine, I think if you put in a new cartridge, well, that can give you enhanced capability without necessarily taking up more precious RAM space on your machine. As the final thing I do on this video, I'm gonna put in the game cartridge Defender here from Atari into the left slot. Here we go. There it is. It just booted right up. Select game and press the start button. I'll just hit start. Look at that, immediate death. I never was good at this game. This is not a terrible version of the game. Oops, I was trying to rescue him. Oh, he survived anyways, I think. I have this on the easy difficulty level too, and look, I just keep dying immediately. Oh, I actually finished that level. And that is gonna be it for this video. I'm really excited to finally get this Atari 800 working after having it for a good number of years.
I hope the keyboard repair is permanent, or at least lasts a while, because I think there's really nothing else I can do other than replace that membrane entirely. So if anyone knows of a place to get replacement membranes for these Mitsumi keyboards on the 800, definitely put a link or put a comment in the description. Boy, I'm always messing this up. Put a comment down below. That's what I'm saying. I know I've mentioned this a bunch of times, but I absolutely love the way this machine looks. It's probably one of my favorite home computers of the 70s, even more than the iconic Apple II Plus, which I really like as well. But something about this one, it screams they put a lot of effort into making this machine good. And it's so capable compared to the other machines that were out at the time. And even with the 64, you can argue that there's some areas that this is actually better than the 64. But of course, this has the pokey sound chip, which is not nearly as capable as the SID. Now, I'm sure I am gonna incite a flame war in the comment section about these comments, but I think overall the Commodore 64 is more powerful than this machine. But we have to remember, it came out 3 years later. Technology was moving really quick at that time, so that's a long time in 80s and 70s technology. And even then, like I said, there's still stuff that's better about this, like the fact that it can display colors out of a palette of 256. That's pretty amazing for the time. I mean, I can't think of any other home computer that had anything even close to that until like the Amiga came out, for instance. So as I mentioned at the start of this video, there's gonna be a lot more Atari 8-bit content coming up on the channel, not necessarily right away because I don't like to overload the channel with like one type of computer, but I have all those other machines I need to get to. I need to at least test them out and see which ones work and which ones don't. And then I can tackle some actual repairs or maybe some upgrades, like do a RAM upgrade on the Atari 400, fun stuff like that. So if you liked this video, thumbs up. If you didn't, you know what to do. Subscribe, all the usual stuff. Huge thanks to my patrons. Their names are scrolling up the side of the screen. As you saw at the beginning of this video, I actually have merch now, so I have t-shirts and stuff you can buy. So there's a link down below for that as well. And you know, all the usual stuff. So that's gonna be it. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I will see you next time. Bye.